I'm going to invite the panel today. Thank you so much for coming in. To begin with, back again with us today, our dear friend Anaita Adajania Shroff, a lady who needs no introduction. Welcome back onto the panel. Thank you for your support. We have Karan Johar, again, a man who doesn't need introduction. I'm going to keep it short. Thank you, Karan, for joining us, for your time. And Mickey Boardman, the editorial director of Paper Magazine, New York. Thank you, Mickey, for joining it again today. Okay, so there we are. The talk we've all been waiting for, and we begin. Here we are. So the context of today's conversation, as you all know, is Bollywood and fashion. I know a lot of emerging talents here from across the industry want to know all about how the industry functions, behind the scenes, the real story. And what better way to then have two iconic contributors to the industry in fashion and Bollywood, and Mickey obviously working with some of the most iconic front covers, breaking the internet cover with Kim Kardashian, by the way, was his brainchild and his baby, and that's something that's been trending as an annual front cover now. So thank you, all of you, to be here. And let's begin today's conversation. We're going to keep this organic. We also want you to involve. And we're going to pick questions post 30 minutes, and we'll be happy to have your thoughts and engage with us. So to begin the conversation, Bollywood and fashion. Obviously, it's a wide conversation, a very broad topic. But obviously, from an emerging talents perspective, I know a lot of you, want to know that does fashion and Bollywood, or rather does Bollywood drive fashion in terms of the business, in terms of sales, in terms of promotion, communication? That is what we all perceive. Let us open the conversation with Anaita's perspective on that, and then to come for Karan to join in on that.
So I think the film industry, Bollywood and fashion have a very symbiotic relationship. We both depend on each other a lot. I mean, if you think of a film, when you're styling a contemporary character, you use fashion that's available, okay? A lot of stylists are now doing films, and they know the trends before they even come out 6 months in advance. So what happens is, you already have the forecast in your head, you style a character, then the film comes out. When that character is wearing those clothes or those trends, those clothes are in the store. So actually it all just works beautifully. And I think we're all very much in sync in that aspect. Wouldn't you agree?
So I think that the relationship between fashion and the film fraternity in India, okay, I'm going to start saying Bollywood because that's just accepted, because it's always a heavy-hearted thing to say, but we'll have to just say it. There's always been a close association, like, if you had films in the 60s and actually the 40s and 50s, everything that was done in cinema was always emulated by people, from the hair to the saris, and then the 60s, which saw the most glorious phase of fashion, which is still emulated today. Then the cuts in the 70s, then to the garish colors in the 80s. But actually, it was in the 90s where actually fashion became more resonant with Indian cinema. I think it was from Rangila onwards, which released in 1995, which Manish Malhotra designed, Urmila's Wardrobe, where there was like a cool, where actually the younger generation identified with a certain kind of look. Then Dilwale Dulhania came that year, and there was, Shah Rukh's leather jacket, which was from Harley Davidson, and Kajal's a kind of certain props and like clothing patterns that were emulated. Then came, of course, Dil To Pagal Hai, and then Kuch Kuch Hota and Kabhi Khushi. And they were films that were aspirational, that catered to a certain kind of zone. It was consumerism at its peak. Globalization had opened up, and India was like, Shah Rukh Khan had become this humongous poster boy for everything contemporary and aspirational, and he was a huge star. But in the last decade, I have noticed that our content has completely changed. So in that way, what is fashionable and fashion forward is now basically fashion forward on Instagram and social media, because our films have become far more rooted in their story and narrative. They've become far more traditional in their approach, far more Indian in their approach, locationally, geographically, even costume-wise. I was just telling Anaita, when we were chatting behind that last year, the main films of the year were Badhai Ho, Razi, and Andhadhun. Andhadhun was, of course, designed by Anaita. It was all real, all very story-related. There was nothing that was used that was a fashion element, that was a contemporary costuming. All that is all rampant on red carpets for the few who get it right. And many of the, so either which way, everyone's attempting fashion at their homes, in their environment, at events. Everyone's trying, stylists have upped their game, but it's all very associated with social media. It's no longer Bollywood or Indian cinema that dictate fashion as much.
It's no longer film as much, but it's still the people. It's still the
personalities.
personalities.
Yes, the people entirely. Like you can't escape Bollywood if you want your clothes platform because it's either cricket or Bollywood that really strikes the largest chord, in and around our zone. Unfortunately, that is the case, because in the West, we have many more celebrities. You have pop stars and you have like people in the music world, supermodels. We have none of those that have broken through to those numbers that Bollywood or cricket does. So yes, I feel bad, and Anaita and I discussed it, that gone are those days where we went shopping to New York and London and bought some amazing clothes for films that actually resonated with those themes.
No, I was thinking back when we did Ae Dil Hai Mushkil, we were working with Ranbir. Even though his character was not affluent, we were able to buy some really cool, expensive looking, like say for example, if he wore a D-squared jacket, it wasn't meant to look fashionable. It just looked right for the character. But those days seem to have gone. It's more about now really getting into the soul of the character, the reality, and people are judging you for how real people are. People aren't writing those characters anymore. Karan also is now making some period film.
Yeah, but now what to do?
It's really sad.
I'm also making a period film, and I get appalled.
I have no work.
So I'm that guy that when I shot Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, it was Ritik's introduction on the last ball of an over of a match, and he was in sparkling white, and the ball looked like a Himachal Pradesh apple, and it didn't look like it had weathered an entire match, and I was like, no, it's the hero's introduction, he must look glorious. So I'm like, I don't understand when a designer comes and says, oh, we have to age this garment and put it into tea water and make it, and I'm like, no, but why? Why do we need to age anything? But that's just the order of our times, and great for cinema, great for reality, great for content, but so unfortunate as well, because we don't like pretty people anymore on screen. It's really sad.
No, we like the pretty but real.
No, and everybody wants to real. That's why are people being so real? It's so sad. Everyone from critics and audiences want us to be real. It's unfortunate. Like they're like, who dresses like this? But I don't want to be real. That's not why I walked into the movies. I wanted to create an aspirational world, which is where my life began. And now I find myself second guessing my core instinct of being not real. And I'm like, that's not why I wanted to be in the movies. And now we are forced to be real because then Anupama Chopra will bitch into us and Rajiv Masand will say rude things. And we also want that pat on our back from the critics. I also want those stars next to my name and those golden leaves that festivals give us. And like, I'm really upset about this wave. You don't understand, I've come here with a heavy heart.
So are you going to stick to your...
Sorry. On this note of a heavy heart, I was talking to Anupama this morning, saying how she wrote this amazing piece about how is Bollywood only going to be about red carpet fashion with people actually not promoting films, or are we ever going to talk about the film people there? And that was such a valid point. Sometimes fashion gets so... like over the top and taken over that people forget that we're there to promote films.
No one knows which film won the Palme d'Or and Cannes, but they know what Sonam wore, what Deepika wore, and what Aishwarya wore.
This is turned the tables actually. We were conversing on how Bollywood
anybody. I want to know anybody. How many people know who won the Palme d'Or?
Or which Indian films are represented?
No. There's not one hand here. I love you all. Y'all are my kind of people. I also don't know who won the Palme d'Or.
That's being real. Absolutely real.
I don't know. I really should check. While I said it, I was like,
somebody
I don't know
Google it, please, while we're waiting. Google who won the Palme d'Or.
You know who won the Palme d'Or? Parasite.
Oh, okay.
That's what I feel like right now for the fact that I don't know. Well done, though.
Yeah.
Are you a fashion or are you a journalist or what background are you from? There you are. There you are.
Good, well done. Well done.
Great.
Bravo. The true reason to exist at Cannes.
There was an Indian documentary that did very well, though, but wasn't in the competitive section.
I think you should zip it right now. Before you put any more.
I'm trying to remember his name. Kapadia, Asif Kapadia.
Yeah.
Got it.
Asif Kapadia has also made a very celebrated film called Warrior.
Okay, so we're not so bad. Moving on to fashion.
Moving on to fashion and obviously Bollywood. So Mickey, bringing on you to onto the conversation. You know, you recently
I don't know if I could follow these two. It's like you should go on tour as a comedy team.
We should have our own show. We need it.
But so you featured Deepika, and you know, we had a conversation about Bollywood and obviously editorials and the magazine, and again being a New York-based magazine, a global magazine, how do you see the fusion of Bollywood fashion? How do you perceive it, and how important is it for your magazine and you as an individual?
Well, I agree with what Karan and Anaita have said. I mean, if you think of the classic Hollywood era, it was, you know, Rosalind Russell in a couture gown as a secretary. They never looked real. It was all fantasy, and that was sort of a magical time. But I think in terms of Bollywood, the world has gotten much smaller, and it used to be in the United States, they only cared about American performers, and now someone who gets more traffic than anybody for us anytime we write about them is BTS, that K-pop band. Do you guys care about?
Yeah, oh God.
Isn't that crazy? Our office managers' nieces go to every concert they do, to K-pop festivals. They've learned phonetically Korean so they can sing along to the songs they don't even know the words to. They might be saying like "Death to America," who knows what they're saying. And that's totally different. And I think similarly, you know, Bollywood is the biggest movie industry in the world, and there are people around the world who are obsessed with India, myself included. And there are Indian people around the world. So when we've done something with Priyanka Chopra, when we did a party, there were 100 people standing outside before she had even done Quantico. You know what I mean? She was just doing the guest campaign. And you don't really get that for a lot of American stars. So I think, you know, the thing that's really important for us as a magazine, and I think for a lot of media people, I don't know if Anaita agrees, is who's going to buy the magazine, who's going to look at it, who's going to click a like on Instagram. And those people, there are people in India who have gigantic followings and who have followings around the world. So it makes India very appealing. Plus, English is one of the main languages of India, which makes that also very appealing. So yeah, I think India is very much the future. More than China, I think India really is the way to go. Thank you. Plus, there's something about the celebrities here. There's something about the celebrities here. Priyanka is so smart. Like, they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? They really know how to give their fans what they want, and they know how to be professional and how to, you know, create hysteria wherever they go. I've never seen more hysteria than I've seen around Indian stars.
You know, coming back to talents.
That wasn't about fashion, sorry.
So emerging talents. Now, one of the perceptions they have is for them to get into the industry. You know, they need their perception is they need Bollywood. They need to ride through Bollywood either as celebrities or through a film or through a cover. But the vehicle or the communication, the medium for them, the perception is that it's Bollywood. And I think we were having a conversation that's evolving, that's changing now. And what is your opinion on that for young talents? How can they break through, and how can they get into the industry in that?
I mean, you know, it is a quick step. Yes, of course. If a Bollywood celebrity wears your clothes, yes, you are going to be noticed. But it's not the only way. I mean, you know, at our fashion week, we constantly are criticized for the fact that there's an actor as a showstopper. And for me, as a fashion director, I literally watch the show in two parts. The first part is for fashion, and the last part is like a little schoolgirl clapping, cheering, hooting, because it's entertainment. Now, that is the demand of the audience in the auditorium. It's also the demand of the media. And I think it's fine. I enjoy both parts. What was the question? I think I've lost my way somewhere.
Right, so...
But however, having said that, I think it's safe to say that it's not the only way. And definitely now with the influx of social media, I think it's anyone's game. I think at the end of the day, raw talent shines. And if you have that, you're going to be noticed by the right people, and you're going to be in the right place.
It's content, as you said.
In fact, I think sometimes, and I tend to agree with Anaita, I also think sometimes the flip side of that is sometimes I believe that Bollywood can also be a deterrent. You know, it can also kind of take up, if there is a genuine lot of people who understand fashion, follow fashion, know the ups and downs of fashion, the strengths and weaknesses of fashion, and also a garment that they see on the ramp. And sometimes, like a Bollywood star or a celebrity wearing it, it has that mirage effect. Like it seems glamorous, but it's not. And people can see through that effect. You know, they can see through it. And I think sometimes it's used as a cover-up, you know, to kind of make up for the lack of perhaps your inherent talent in your collection, or just the fact that it's a weaker collection. And I believe sometimes there are many such talented designers. And like Anaita said, if they're good and their talent shines, it will shine right through. There are stylists, there are people in editorials that will notice their work, platform them, and it's for the world to see, and eventually it'll get to a Bollywood star. Because I know a lot of times, like I've heard stylists discuss that, like, oh my God, please, you can't wear him or her, they've become too Bollywood. And that's actually also a roadblock. So I think there are those who have held on to their talent and their belief, their conviction in fashion. I think they've really gone the distance. Now to do the mainstream numbers that, you know, A-list designers like Manish and Sabya and Abu Sandeep and Anamika have done, eventually you can't do without Bollywood. Because eventually when Sonam wears you, or when Anushka wears you, and Deepika wears you when you're married, let me tell you, you know, Sabya has definitely gone dancing to the bank. Like, because everyone want him, you know, so it does impact, you know, because you must know that these girls and those images on Instagram become aspirational for the entire universe, you know, and I think that eventually is something that you need to, but it's wonderful if they can call you instead of you trying for you to kind of get that star to wear your garment. If they call you and say, I want to wear Dhruv Kapoor, or I want to wear, like you spoke about a new designer, Kanika. And like there's so many of them doing such great work. Like when I see these younger designers, and in fact, when I'm following Fashion Week, the one thing I look out for are the new voices. You know, I always see like, what are they doing? You know, what is that? Sometimes you're doing too much, sometimes you're doing too little. But it's those that strike the balance beautifully will definitely get noticed.
You know, on that note, Karan, as a director, you know, do you get to pick? Is it just always a stylist, or is it the costume designers, or do you also go on scout and say, well, this is an emerging talent, this is a designer I love, and I would want, you know, for them to collaborate on a movie or a character? Does that, what's the level of involvement?
See, I don't understand this character. I mean, you know, sometimes like, I mean, like, as you have seen in my films, I've not been true to any character or their economic kind of situation. Like we said, Ranbir was meant to be not a very privileged person.
Let me tell you, I had to hide the high street shopping I did from Karan. I'd be like, no, don't look at these bags.
Yeah, so I'm the wrong person to ask about, because I sometimes have shoved brands down Anaita's throat or to the designer of the film, because I'm like, I like it and I can't fit into it, so my lead actor must. But I mean, like, that's just me, and I would do that. So I'm not somebody you should speak to in this zone. But I also am very obsessed. This is one department that I love, because I've always studied fashion, and as a child, you know, I've just grown up like around it. It's something that I absolutely love as like a hobby.
I don't know if the audience knows that Karan styled me in Dilwale.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's not get into that film. But anyway, I mean, those days were different when when I was designing Shah Rukh's clothes. I remember Cotton World was the go-to store. Like, you know, and Fashion Street was the backup. Like, these were the two places that we went to. And, you know, literally, I think anything that cost over a certain amount was like just was not allowed. Like, we just literally had no money.
This is pre-Karan, you see. Then post-Karan, the whole industry changed. Everyone's only wearing designer clothes now, you see.
Yeah. I think something that Karan said that's really important is to how Bollywood could hold you back that way. And I think the most important thing is to have a relationship with Anaita or with different stylists, and not to just blow smoke up Anaita's butt. But because, for example, a lot of young designers I know, it's the stylists who get them on the stars or get them in the important magazines, and that can be much more important than just a celebrity being in the show itself. But then the flip side of the problem is that, as I know a lot of great young designers who, I know Christian Cowan, a designer I know in New York, who's Cardi B wore on her album cover. Nicki Minaj has worn, like, every celebrity has worn him, but then that's not a business, you know what I mean? Because they, you know, call and say Nicki Minaj is doing a video tomorrow and she needs 14 custom-made bodysuits and we don't have any money. You know what I mean? So that's not how you build a business. So you have to, celebrities are great, but you also have to keep an eye out for money and things like that. But I think stylists really can make your career much more than having a celebrity in your show.
And actually, the advent of the stylist I've seen it all, because we've been in the business 25 years now. So I've seen like the fashion designer, then the costume designer, and then I've seen the advent of the stylist. And I realized that the stylist has now become a very integral part of our ecosystem, you know, because there are certain people who are just doing costume design and they don't want to do styling, because there are those, like I met people who worked on films such as, like, you know, these real films that I mentioned, and they don't want to do like the zone of glamour, because they're more happy creating characters on celluloid. Then the stylists that have really taken over the last 5 years, it's been something, and I think people like Anaita have helmed that movement, because I think they began that journey, they had the sensibility that balanced both worlds, and now there's like, now everyone wants to be a stylist. But I'm like, that also, I think those people should realize that it's really something that you have to understand, because your knowledge of fashion, the academia of fashion, is integral. Stylist is just not because you think you have good taste. It does not warrant you becoming a stylist. What warrants you becoming a stylist is an understanding of fashion, being truly passionate about it, treating it like a subject that you can master in before you venture into the territory of styling. Because that will teach you how do you dress someone according to their body type, their personality, their just place in life, you know, because I feel a lot of times when I see young stylists, many of them getting it beautifully right and some of them getting it gloriously wrong. It's because I think they've just stumbled upon it because they didn't have another profession that they wanted to do. So suddenly they think, oh, I can be a stylist. And I feel like those are the ones that are detrimental to the fashion movement in our country.
Absolutely. And also likewise, when you said earlier that, you know, if a Bollywood star wears something and they look good, it's great. But very often it doesn't work, right? Because the aesthetic of the designer, what they're trying to say, especially with the younger designers who have unique voices, and then you have a stylist who dolls everything up, regardless of whether it was meant to be deconstructed and, you know, or more streety, can actually work against you. Because like as a senior stylist, I'll look at it and be like, yeah.
No, also you have to see our environment about where our red carpets are very different from the red carpets in the world out there. It's like a very different atmosphere. Sometimes you have to dress for what the event is, you know, and what the surrounding is, what others are wearing. Because you might be hitting the A-list fashion game, but actually everyone else will think you're looking strange because they are dressed in a certain way. So you've got to understand what is the event for, what are people wearing, what is the cause of the event. Is it like a glamorous function?
And the personality of the person you're styling, not everyone's the same. I think people just forget that. It's like if the dress didn't work on A, let's give it to Z. You know, it just
like many a times I want to tick that nay, that they say yay or nay, and I just want to keep ticking that nay. Or pressing that nay, like, I just feel like I'll be found out.
It may come back to you. Yeah, don't do it.
I want to be my own Diet Sabya.
That was my next question, and he just told it. Are you Diet Sabya?
I am not Diet Sabya.
As if you have the time.
I want to tell you, I have a great regard for Diet Sabya, and I'm very scared that I keep telling my stylist, I'm like, I never want to be on Diet Sabya. Make sure that I'm winning, because I think it's caused some kind of, because now even I think whoever Diet Sabya is also struggling because everybody's now up there. Nobody's really copying anyone anymore. So I'm like, I think whoever they are, is it one person or a group of people? I'm not sure who Diet Sabya is, but I'm following them very, very excitedly.
Well,
maybe Anaita and we can just start some kind of a fashion police.
Yeah, we don't diet.
Well, I think it could be a diet Manish in the offering.
Look it up. If it's not taken, take it for us.
Well, in terms of, you know, you touched a very interesting context of styling, and obviously the fact that a lot of talents who don't get into design, or they think they just don't want to cut and sew, and that's when I can be a stylist. And obviously a lot of them want to be a stylist because then they can meet Bollywood celebrities, or they can, I think that's a quick, fast route to enter the industry. But again, the point is that it's the content, you know, and for them to sustain, it's your work. That's what really speaks for itself. And to be you and understand the industry and what you're getting into is very important. Bollywood obviously is a big driver. And I think one of the conversations we were also rather having is that Bollywood contributes phenomenally in terms of the business of fashion. We always look at Bollywood as entertainment. We look at the relationship between Bollywood and fashion as entertainment, but we don't understand or we don't talk about the revenues. And remember, fashion is a business at the end of the day. It's not something you pick up as a hobby. It's not something that, you know, you get into because you don't want to be an engineer or a doctor. It is business. And if looked into seriously, at the same time, you know, if you respect the industry, be there for the right reasons. I think that's the conversation we were having.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of more conversations, and we're going to open up to a few questions, to about 3 or 4 questions. But talking about, you know, Bollywood and now obviously the shift to influencers. There is the celebrities. Let's say, you know, back again, we said celebrities in India are restricted to cricket or Bollywood, and now we've got the influencers coming in. And how do you see that impacting fashion?
I also want to know what makes these influencers, like is there a
Yeah.
criteria? Because I'm quite intrigued by this.
No, I actually feel there is no criteria, which is why they are influencers. If there was a criteria, they would be having no
I'm quite
influence.
intrigued because I've been told, oh, that person's a social
Yeah.
media influencer, some
Yeah.
a fashion influencer. I said,
Yeah.
but on what basis? And I'm genuinely wanting to know.
Well, Shivang, maybe you want to answer
No,
that.
I think if
never
you call
figured out.
yourself,
I just haven't
I think if you
figured.
call yourself
I've
an
never called
influencer, you're
myself
not
an
an influencer.
Because I've
So I
read
think
that
it's
in
like
their
if you say
bio,
it.
like fashion
Yeah.
influencer,
I
but
think
I'm
you
like,
can't
who gave
say
you
that
that
about
tag?
yourself.
Yeah.
It's like me saying superstar, but doesn't mean I am one.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can't just call yourself one.
It's
Like,
true. It's
if
a
you're
new
writing a
thing.
blog, I get it, you're a blogger.
Blogger,
But
yeah.
fashion influencer, who? And
Yeah.
sometimes when I stare at them, I get very worried about like their
It is
influence.
It's a worrying thing because
I'm like, it's more an influenza.
it's a full influencers. But I think that's a difference. I think even when we're talking about stylists or people in our industry, you know, it's not so much about yourself. It's about what you do. I mean, like he said, 25 years, we didn't feel the need to shout out from rooftops as to what we're doing. You have to let your work show. And if your work is good, people will love you and they will follow your influence. You don't need to be an influencer to influence people at all.
Well said. Thank you.
Correct. That was the answer I was looking for, Anaita. Well
Nailed
done.
it.
Well, right. So I know a lot of influencers also in here. So
Sorry,
obviously-
influencer.
We love you despite what we say.
Sorry.
Right. So let's pick two questions, two interesting questions, and who's it? Right. Okay. We'll give the lady out there an
Yeah.
opportunity there. In the center, can we have the mic to her, please?
Better be good. A lot of pressure on you.
I have a question towards all of you. I'm a 16-year-old makeup artist and a body artist. I've been trained in London, Dubai, and India itself. I've been training since I was 10.
My God.
My question is, my talent, I don't have the audience that I want, that I would want in front of all these people. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have the creativity and have the ability to create amazing things. But sometimes we get shadowed by a lot of people and we don't get the right opportunity to show our talent and show our creativity. I do have 2 Instagram accounts. I have everything I try. I promote my work. But it's not something people would want to see. As in your movies, people love seeing it. My mom, huge fan. Your designs, amazing. Amazing writing. And of course, the founder of FAD. But my question is basically, where do I get the chance and where does everyone who has a creative thought come out to the industry? What are your opinions on new creative thoughts?
Your friend's just recording you, that's going to go viral. No, I'm just kidding, sorry. No.
You're sounding very troubled and you're 16.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
I'm like, you have a life ahead of yourself,
Yeah.
darling. You're only 16.
That's my
and you're
question.
feeling shadowed at 16.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities I miss out on.
When you're
because-
16.
Exactly. That's my point. When I'm 16, that tag of 16.
You know.
I think you're being very hard
Harsh
on
on
yourself.
yourself,
Yeah,
You're
very
really,
harsh
you're
on
16
yourself.
and
Yes.
if you're talented, it's going to all happen. It takes a while before people notice you on social media. You have to just keep going. The fact that you're doing this since the age of 10 and you're at 16, you're sounding so worried. That means you're definitely very passionate about your craft and it's what you want to do and that's all you want to do. And that kind of passion cannot go unnoticed. You will keep, maybe it was meant to break out at the time that you really perfect your art. Maybe you needed all these years that you've been actually putting yourself out on social media to perfect your art, to get to that stage of doing makeup that is truly brilliant. And at 16, I think you have all the wings you need to fly. And you just keep doing it, whether it's for a year, 2 years, or even 3 years. When you're 19, can you imagine? When you're 19, you might be ready.
You know.
So, I mean, I don't know how to answer the traumas of a 16-year-old.
I have a suggestion for you. So right now, are you working alone in isolation?
No, not really. I just started my own business startup.
Right.
And I'm a student of FAD.
Okay. So, so in the makeup part of it, like, did you ever assist anyone?
I've worked with MTV on several episodes.
Sorry?
Worked with
MTV.
MTV.
MTV, okay. So my recommendation, which is something I recommend to a lot of people, is to do a long-term internship or assistantship with someone that you admire. And if you don't get your first choice, go for your third, it's okay, it still works. And that's how you'll learn how the industry works, you'll meet a lot of people, and someone who's as young and enthusiastic as you, when they make their first film, they'll want to use you. That's how we've all started. We are college friends. So, you know.
And we're, I mean, despite
Yeah.
our youthful appearance, we're
Yes.
not 16. You know what I mean? So we
Yeah.
have been where you are, and you're all lucky, I think, to have social media because
Exactly.
almost everybody knew
Yeah.
I
At
find
16,
on
I was choreographing Anaita on the
Yes.
ramp. And neither am I a fashion choreographer, and neither is she a model.
Exactly.
So you saw we didn't waste our time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're
yeah.
lucky that you have audiences. I mean, and even though if you might have a few thousand followers, I find makeup artists all the time online, or
Yeah.
you know, it all just takes someone going on a deep dive and finding you. So you should work with as many people as you can. I think Anaita made a brilliant point because also often if a makeup artist is very, like Pat McGrath can't do
Yeah.
a job, we'll say, well, who works with who are her best assistants, and then
Correct.
to start them off. So
Yeah.
it's all good. You just have to keep working and don't panic, as Karan
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
You're only 16. Go find someone
Yeah.
cute to make out with in the garden. Find two, one for me and one for you.
But I
Make
think,
that 3.
you know, one thing is the other thing is, remember, it takes time. And with Instagram, the pressure on all of us today is you want everything instant. And
You're
that's
also
a
sounding very
conversation.
serious.
No, it's a
Yeah. She's
fact.
16.
Because no,
Yeah.
that's the fact. They
I would
all
follow Mickey's advice. Out you go.
Also, you know, maybe you're not ready. If you're maybe it happens when you're ready. I mean, and I know when you're 16, you're like, God, when am I gonna finally make it? And I'm 52, and I still haven't hit my peak yet. Do you know what I mean? And there are moments when you look back and think, wow, this is great. This is a big step in my career. But it's not to keep talking about men, but it's like a man. Like the minute you stop looking for a man, they come.
Yeah.
The minute you stop obsessing about where's that, and you've been working with MTV, you sound like you're doing great already to me. So like relax and just enjoy yourself, and it'll come when it's meant to come.
Enjoy this time. It'll never come back.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, we've got one last
Yeah.
question to pick.
Yeah. No, it's not on. Give her the other.
Hello.
Hi.
Sir just mentioned that designing is, or styling is not something any doctor or engineer should do, as a part-time thing. I'm just saying this because I'm a doctor.
But that's not what he said, actually.
Okay.
He said
sorry.
it's not like just a career that you can
okay,
pick
okay,
up.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that is
Yeah.
my fault. Actually, I'm a doctor, and I've pursued my medicine. I'm doing my post-graduation, my MD. So, and I'm really, really interested in designing. And I have a page also. It's a very small page on Instagram. It has just been a year. So I do have my customers, very, very small, just 5,000 followers. But that's all I see is fashion everywhere.
So do you give them medical advice and fashion advice?
It does happen
But
actually.
many people
Many
in the
people
fashion
need it.
business need medical
Need
advice.
this, yeah.
So it's actually a great synergy
gotta
that
be-
you have struck
Coming
upon.
to the diet, I know somebody in Cairo who's a dietitian, and then she did styling, and now she's a diet stylist. I'm not making this up. She actually consults them on the diet, and she also talks about styling.
So yeah, people do approach me with their medical conditions, but yeah, what I see is all fashion, like everywhere, and whatever I see, inspires me to create something. But the thing is, I wanted to know how necessary is a formal education, like required for the
To be a designer?
Yeah.
Very necessary.
So like,
To be a stylist, not necessary.
so what for me, like since I'm doing my MD right now, so what is the next thing which I can do, like maybe for a proper education to to go into this also
Here's your man.
simultaneously.
Well, it's a very tough question. So the fact is, there are times where you need formal education, and there are times that you learn much more beyond the four walls. Okay, it's the experience, it's your passion, it's the commitment, it's the time you invest, industry. So it's very difficult to advise because it's not a generic question. But I think just follow your heart. Just don't be a doctor because that's what your parents want you to be.
I
And-
want to be both actually. It's a
okay.
very tough
Well,
problem.
it's very difficult
I love
for
doing
us.
both. I
If-
don't know.
It's very difficult for us to advise what would be the best
Do
career
both, do
option
both.
for you.
It's not difficult for me.
Yeah.
Don't go to school.
At least
Just
you'll be
go
a
work for a
fashionable
designer.
doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, to be a doctor, you need to go to school.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to pass some tests, and you know what I mean, if you're going to operate on somebody. But to be a designer, yes, it's great if you know how to sew, pattern, make, do
Yeah.
all those things. But you could take classes. Do you have night classes at FAD? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But or go work for a designer. Who's the designer you love? Call, say, I'll work for free. I'll get coffee. I'll do whatever it is, and then you kind of get exposed, and you could see sort of more about it. But
But you need to learn.
I went to college for 8 years that have with stuff that has
Same
nothing
here.
to do with what I do today. So my parents wasted their money on some level. But
Yeah.
It was, about personal growth and development. I learned, I grew, I did all this kind of, I learned what I didn't want to do, and now here I am on stage with these legends.
Thank you so much.
Well, I think enjoying fashion does not mean that you need to be in the profession of fashion. That's one thing.
That's a very good point.
That's a
That's
very
a very
good
good
We all
point.
enjoy fashion, and we have
Yep.
a lot of people say, I say, why do you want to get into fashion? And they say, oh, I love shopping. No, that
Yeah,
does
I
not.
love food,
It's a
but I'm not
serious
a chef.
business. Okay, it's
Yeah.
a business. You are responsible to the industry as a stylist, as a designer. As any fashion industry insider, at the
it
end
could
of the
be
day,
a
it's a
hobby.
business.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Could be
Could be
a
a
Yeah.
hobby that you can celebrate
Yeah.
and
And
enjoy.
actually, it requires equal amount of kind of knowledge
Yeah.
and information that you read up on, research. And fortunately for you, social media is such a huge part of the fashion game today. It's like you can pick up so much, learn so much, if you have the instinct to absorb.
No, I keep, sorry to interrupt you, sir. I keep doing that. Like, I have this thing, I always
But I've not
read,
quite
but-
understood what is your problem exactly. You seem fine.
Yeah.
You are an MD with a great sense of fashion and an
Yeah.
ability who has a page with 5,000 people. You are also doing very well according to me. You all are all having tremendous first world problems. It's great. Just do what you just. You don't.
Yeah.
I think if you really want to be a doctor and you've done your MD, I feel personally I wouldn't want you to distract yourself and enter a zone of education and fashion. But you can always pick up on that form and keep teaching yourself on what you learn and absorb. Who knows what that opportunity may arrive in your life at a certain stage. But being a doctor is no mean task. Let me tell you. And everybody would argue that everything requires work, but to become a doctor is a lot more work than it is to be in the zone of fashion. Let's all really be very pragmatic about that.
absolutely.
And you've gone through those beats. You're going to do your MD, and it's amazing. Well done. Congratulations. And just enjoy your kind of your zone that you're in where it comes to your passion for fashion, and that can always happen. So I don't suggest you start educating yourself right now or go and do an internship with a designer, because you will be distracting your core, and your core is medicine, and I see that.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Karan. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you, Anaita, for a wonderful panel today. Thank you for being here with us.